dating is spending the time in different contexts with the same person, critically observing how they perform in different contexts.
It's not like the normal relationship that you said break up and it's off. I guess that there must be some certain process in order to give breakup to that person.
So when you talk about dating, it's easy to have a first date where you sit at dinner and you say all the right things and you keep your mouth clean and you chew with your mouth. The same person that may be the best person to start the business may not be the best person to scale and grow the business if they aren't willing to or able to grow and bring in other folks who can bring in additional expertise because starting a business and scaling a sustained business take two very different skill sets. Leadership is all about making tough decisions. Leadership is all about getting comfortable being uncomfortable.
You are the actual person with whom you are connected the most, especially the five guys. Professor Archie Jones, welcome to Chill Talks with Kritik. Thank you so much for your time. So nice to have you on this show.
Thank you so much. So great to be here, Kritik.
Okay, so I want to start this talk from your general perspective. Moreover, I would say a personal perspective related to leadership and innovation, the thing that you have been talking since a very long time. And I know that you have been giving lots and lots of lectures and training related to leadership since a very long time. And in your own book, The Treasure You Seek, that is completely leadership focused book, you have discussed about this topic and you call this thing a leadership capital, right?
Yes, very much so.
So in your opinion, what does an actual leader mean then?
A leader is someone who actually makes change. And I think that can be in any format. That can be in your personal life. That can be in your family. You don't have to be leading an organization. One of my favorite leaders is Harriet Tubman, who was an American woman who led herself from slavery to freedom, actually walking from the southern U.S. in the time of slavery to the northern U.S., and then took that freedom to lead her family to freedom, and then led many others, not just in terms of her actual walking, but in terms of sharing her story and sharing her perspectives. And so when I think of a leader, she's the model that I think of when I think of a leader. In many cases, they don't have the title. They don't have the stature. She didn't have education. None of the things. She didn't have financial wealth or social wealth. Wasn't well connected to speak. And so the things that we usually think of that are associated with leadership in terms of title and having an abundance of resources, I think of leaders as being focused around a noble mission or goal, and then leveraging all of what they have and developing and connecting with others to get some of the things they don't have in order to accomplish that mission.
So just few moments back, you said that you have dedicated much of your life in helping others to build the thing called leadership capital. So before I move more and more towards this topic in order to discuss about the thing, I just wanted to know is like, what was the profound influence that you have had in building the leadership capital thing, especially in this modern world where things are getting rapidly changed and the old ones immediately get replaced by the new thing. So what do you think that leaders in this age should do to maintain their relevance in according to the present context?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to adapting to change, I think you actually need a solid foundation. I think first, before you can even assess change or get ready to adapt to change, I think you need a grounding. And so most of my leadership development work is around helping you find your unique gift, your unique skills, your unique relationships, leveraging your own experience, because I think it is that. And then lastly, also developing connections, because when you think about change, What does it mean to navigate your way through change? I think first you've got to figure out what it is that is worth keeping in the moment of change. In a moment of change, it doesn't mean everything gets changed. I think there's some foundational elements, some values that need to be unshaken, that don't change. And then as you look at change, I think the other thing is leveraging your own experience. Because in most times, and most great leaders, they have experienced or they are connected to other leaders who've experienced other times of turmoil, change, or opportunity. And so bringing together your own experience and a network of others to share their experience is a big piece of how you navigate change. The other thing that we think about is context. I taught a class last week, and we focused in on the context that you're operating within. And I think in order to get ready for change, I think you've got to look at it on three levels as well. First, you've got to analyze the current context. What is it really? Where does it create challenges? But almost in every challenge, there's an opportunity as well. And so analyze the context that you're in versus immediately reacting. I think the second thing you need to do is to think about how you can navigate within the current context. And so how do I actually work with others that are a part of the current system, the current framework, the current context in order to drive change? And then lastly, you want to evolve that context. And so then how can I make changes? Because I personally believe until you've analyzed it and until you've lived in the circumstance, it's very difficult to come up with a thoughtful, long-ranging, long-term, impactful change.
Okay, so the thing that you said about leadership in present context, well, I have a quite different opinion than yours because what I believe is becoming a leader in today's context is very difficult. Why? So, the main principle of leadership is that you must be able to get connected with each other. However, the world today is getting more and more selfish day by day, and the selfishness has increased a lot. And so, because of this increased selfishness, what I feel like is that it's very difficult for a person to be a leader. And don't you think that there is a quite high challenge for becoming a leader, and this is getting increased day by day?
I think I'd actually disagree. I think it is. It's almost too easy to get connected. Think about how you got to me, right? Right? I mean, it's hard when you're on, as you said, you're on the other side of the world. We have no family connection. We have no professional connection. There is no reason we should be speaking except for a foundational element. You reached out, active reach out, for asking for help, asking for the order. I talk about this in the book on communication. The reason most folks don't have the connections that they need is that they have not asked for it. I think it's a wonderful time to be trying to connect with people as a leader because if you're authentic, think about how you got to me. You sent me an email sharing what value you were bringing to other people, recognizing my superpower, sharing your own superpower, and asking me to share my gift. I guarantee you, more times than not, if you reach out to someone acknowledging their superpower and their gifts and their culture and ask them to share with you, you will be surprised. Not everyone will say yes, but you will get a meaningful minority of folks who will say yes and want to connect with you on something powerful and impactful.
Well, not everyone, I suppose. Just like you said, there are a few people in this world who support each other, but in a very limited number they are.
Not everyone. I think they're more than you believe. I think they're more than you believe. If you reached out to 10 people, you're going to get, I mean, some are going to be busy. Some are going to be, right? It's not because they don't want to connect. You don't know what's going on in their lives, right? They may have be in their own midst of their own crisis. But I'll tell you, that's a high hit rate, right? If you reach out continually and constantly, if you get to 2 out of 10, that's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Well, I guess Does luck also play a crucial role?
I think the harder you work, the luckier you get. And so, yeah, luck plays a role, but I bet you the other thing is continued consistency in reaching out because you get better at your reach out. Right? The first time you practice introducing yourself to me versus the 100th time, you will be much better at it. And I think your hit rate may go from 2 out of 10 to 3 out of 10 to 4 out of 10. And so I do believe luck has a place, fate has a place, but I certainly believe that hard work certainly gives luck a big helping hand.
Yeah, definitely. Just like you said, I also believe that experience it is the best master in any person's life. The more experience you gain, the more chance you will be able to create, and that gets converted into success rate. So definitely, I would say that experience it is needed in anyone's life for a better future.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And then also, again, back to the communication and connection. Reach out to others who have been successful at the thing that you were doing. Experiential capital, I talk about in the book. It doesn't have to be all your experience. The reason we're doing this podcast is that hopefully others can learn from my experience. You don't have to go through everything I went through in order to learn from that. You can have this through communicated experience. I can tell you that certain things work better than others. If you're trying to create great connections, then you ought to also be talking to someone who that is their superpower. And so that you can leverage their experience and their unique gifts and talents.
Well, we will be going to the capital related stuff in the later part of our segment. But right now, what I want to know from you is about the leadership thing, the thing that I believe is required for most of us in our day to day life about the leadership thing. So, what I want to know from you is leadership that is actually a thing about immense responsibility, and it's a very tiring journey. And you yourself, being a leader, you are a professor, being involved in educational sector since a very long time. You also have your own businesses, and as you have said that you also run your own podcast channel. So I just wanted to know is like how do you manage all those things? Because every person in this world has exactly 24 hours in this day. Nobody in this world has more than 24 hours in the day. While people like you are able to complete so many things around a week, I have seen many people who find it very difficult to complete even a single task within a week. So I just wanted to know is like how do you actually maintain all this thing, and what things should people like me learn in order to maintain a work life balance? Because what I feel like is that I am in that stage where I am not actually a kid and not also an adult. I'm in completely a dilemma kind of stage. So what should a person like me do in order to maintain a complete work life balance?
Yeah, and I guess part of it is a continual rebalancing. You talked about what stage of life that we are in. At different stages, the pendulum swings, and if it's I think when you think about balance, you ought to be thinking about balance from a multi-decade standpoint. There are before I had a family, I didn't have to spend as much time focused in on family, right? When I was just out of school, I could focus in very much on work. So there really wasn't a balance. It was heavy work. As soon as family got introduced, then you start to balance and bring that in the period where I had young children and children at home, my 3 sons. There was a heavy balance to being available for them. And so I actually took work opportunities that were less stressful, less time consuming, less of a commute, so that I could focus in on family. So I think these things go in stages. And now I'm in a stage where all of my kids are out of the house. And so I can focus again back on this broader mission, which brings me to my other point on balancing also a big piece of that is prioritization, right? Starting to say there's some things that I'm not going to be able to do. I like to play golf, but for 10 years, I had no time to play any of it, right? If I was going to focus in on, or very little, right? Now I get more time, I can put that back into the equation. And so part of balancing is there is setting the priority. And when I decided that coaching was my priority, then it became easy to start to prioritize. Everything that I do now is lined up against coaching. I'm teaching inside school at the Harvard Business School. I'm doing nonprofit work, developing board leaders. We're sitting on some nonprofit boards. That's coaching as well. My podcast work is a focus on coaching, the book writing. So now it becomes, you can say it's a balance, but it's very focused all around coaching. And I think that prioritization is a big piece of getting there for leaders. I think you also have to, again, I go back to your network. You have to realize that you can't solve it all. I'm solving or working on one particular piece. Other folks are working on some of those other areas. I can't be everywhere at all times.
Okay, let me clarify this. So, thus raising family means that you are not able to do the things that you want to do in your life then?
In a family context, no. I mean, I've never had the luxury of being able to do everything that I like. I've got constraints like everyone else. There's time constraints. There's capital constraints. I did still need to work. So I didn't spend all time I didn't get to be a stay-at-home dad. I actually had to work as well. But again, I think the other thing is you said the word, and the word is balance, right? And if I take the example of my sons played sports. I never made it to all of their games, but I made it to most of their games. And I would sit down and I'd work out the schedule so that in some cases I've had to fly home or change my work schedule in order to make most of their games. I think we need to get out of this. Either I've got it, I'm 100% or it's zero. There's a balancing that happens there. And progress versus perfection, I think is the key.
Now, I just want to divert my topic a little bit towards the business sector. We all know that leadership in any business is very much important, and without a proper leadership, no business can sustain in this world. But what I find in present day is quite not satisfying thing, because there is no any proper leadership in the business. And since the leadership quality is not there inside the business, more and more businesses are being failed. I see this culture especially in the startups, the new guys who are trying to do something new. They try to do something good for the couple of years, 1 2 years, but after some moments they are just becoming a kind of dictator who is just following the money and just money related trends only. But that guy has completely forgotten their own leadership journey, and because of that they are not able to protect their business, and there is no sustainability in this. So do you also completely think the same?
Yeah, I'm sure you've got an example that you're talking to. I'm not seeing that broadly that there's a degradation in the business sector. I think the thing of having worked with entrepreneurial organizations that they struggle with is um, is access to all forms of capital. I haven't found what you described as this. I think as these businesses scale, it gets harder. I don't. For most businesses, it is relatively easy to start. It is tough to scale because it brings in all of the complicating factors and complexities. Yes, you do have investors to deal with. You've got employees now to deal with. You've got other stakeholders. You've got customers. And so, a startup sitting in a garage working on a product is in some ways a lot easier than one that is actually starting to operate and now has suppliers, has customers, has working capital challenges. And so I think it's one of the things that I would highlight is the continued growth that's needed as a leader of those businesses. And in many cases, we teach that the same person that may be the best person to start the business may not be the best person to scale and grow the business if they aren't willing to or able to grow and bring in other folks who can bring in additional expertise. Because starting a business and scaling a sustained business take two very different skill sets. Some people have the ability to do both of those, but not all people.
So, what do you think should be done for that?
I think the key thing there is building a company is similar to raising a child. It takes a village. And so I gave this in a talk last week that you need to surround yourself with advisors, employees, partners, suppliers that can support that business. You cannot, while we think of an entrepreneurial activity as being solo or a single person activity, those companies that are able to grow develop strong, thoughtful, experienced relationships that are able to help them grow that. That's what it is we need. We need a collection you have to build a leadership team in most cases. I mean, unless you're talking about a sole proprietorship where you're going to be the only person both delivering and leading, which isn't going to scale well. But when you're talking about building an organization, building a company, then you move beyond individual leadership and you start talking about building a leadership team. And I think in most cases, in what you're describing, struggles to continue to grow, you can point back to a lack of or a dearth of a leadership team or advisors or supporters or allies for the organization. Those are going to be key, and I think make the real difference between those that struggle to grow and those that see more frequent success.
Well, I want to know right now is, while searching for the right partner, how can we be sure that we are actually finding the right one for our own business?
It's a very good question. There's the well, I think it starts with your um, it starts with your own inventory of your own skills, right? What it is that you have, because your business partnership ought to be complementary, right? There's no need to have two of you with the exact same skills. And so first you've got to do a personal inventory of what do you bring that's unique and special to the table, but also then what you don't do that well at. Where you need additional experience and resources. That becomes, I think, the first check, so that now you've got a criteria for a partner of what am I looking for. I think then second is leveraging your network and starting to spend time, because beyond what the person's resume says that they can do, you've got to also have the ability to have a culture match and a culture fit. Do we have the same values? Are we aligned and excited about the same things? That takes time, and I advocate a long dating period, if you will, where you've got to spend time together before you agree that you're going to be partnered for forever. How much time? Work on a small project together. Can we deliver on a small project and still get closer and see all of the things that we were hoping to get from a partnership together? That'll let us build on something more deep and meaningful for that. The other way to get that is to actually also tap into people who you've already worked with. And many times and this is why I like to talk about entrepreneurship. So inside of organizations that you've been working in, the people and you've met some people who you think are aligned with you from a value standpoint, aligned with you from a mission standpoint, whose work ethic you think works well and matches with yours, and who have some unique skills and gifts. You've got to leverage your internal network and the network of your broader set of connections.
So, just now you talked about a thing called business dating that strike my mind. And frankly speaking, I have never heard about this thing called business dating in my entire life. Well, in relationship, we have been hearing this stuff quite a lot. But in business, I mean, what is this? Well, for many business owner also, this could particularly be a new term. Well, what actually is this thing called business dating?
Yeah, but I think where it ties is is think about the gig economy that we're in. Think about the economy that we're in where it's easy to get online and find someone to work on a small project. You learn a lot by actually having someone work on something. What I sit and tell you in an interview that I can do and will do is one thing. You observe me for over a couple of months. Like, so when you talk about dating, it's easy to have a first date where you sit at dinner and you say all the right things and you keep your mouth clean and you chew with your mouth closed and make all the right niceties. It is really difficult to do that over 8 dates eventually and put you into different contexts. That's the other thing, right? What happens when the food doesn't arrive on time? What happens when they spill something on you? What happens when you get your order wrong? Then I get to really learn who you are, right? What happens when I'm 20 minutes late for the dinner? Or I get interrupted and there's a phone call and I have to leave. How do you react to that? This is what I describe. This is what I think you mean when you say dating is spending the time in different contexts with the same person, critically observing how they perform in different contexts. And over a long enough period of time, they'll show you who they are. And you'll either get more excited about that and want to spend more time, or recognize that, like most of us, they've got some limitations, some of which you may be able to live with, some of which you won't. And so I think it is that spending quality time. So not just, a passing in a hallway and right. And then let's work on a specific deliverable. Let me actually hand you a deliverable. I need you to deliver this by Friday and see what you come back with. That's very different than you telling me in an interview what you could deliver by Friday. Actually deliver it to me by Friday.
Okay, so just a moment before, one question got deeply stuck in my mind regarding to the business dating process. So what I find during the process is that during the dating time, I find that this person is not actually going to be a good business partner for me. And I feel like is that I must give breakup to this person because that person will not be able to align with my goals. So then how should I give breakup to that person then during the business dating? Because it's not like the normal relationship that you said break up and it's off. I guess that there must be some certain process in order to give breakup to that person during the business dating. Isn't it a very difficult process there?
Yeah, think about it this way though. If you signed a partnership agreement and now you own half the company, how difficult is that breakup? Very difficult. So it's much easier to right after all we've done is worked on a project. Right? All we've done is worked on a project. We didn't get married. We didn't stand before God and our families and promise to be together forever. We went and had dinner. And I tell you at the end of dinner, it's been fun, but I don't think I want to have more dinners with you. That's so and though and when welcome to business and welcome to leadership. Leadership is all about making tough decisions. Leadership is all about getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And so if you're looking for comfort, leadership is not the place for you. You're going to regularly be uncomfortable as a leader.
So, does businesses need to be cruel then?
I don't think it's cruel. I think it's actually cruel to promise you something that I can't deliver. I think it's cruel to not do the homework up front, to sign a partnership agreement that says, oh, yeah, we're going to build this business together, to then 2 months later have you leave your job, have you leave other opportunities to then say it's not going to work. I think it's actually very uncruel to say eyes wide open. And it's two-way. You review me as well. This isn't one way. You've got the option at the end of our 2, 3, 4 dinners together to give me the harsh feedback that says, Archie, I don't want to spend any more time with you. That is the most uncruel thing there is. We've both got the option. This isn't a one way. It is a both way. And they should be evaluating you as well. And if there's things that they see, don't like, don't want to have more of, don't think that they can live with, it is the most unselfish thing there is to let them go on and find great opportunity and make a real connection somewhere else. Cruelty would be having them trying to be something they're not to maintain a relationship that isn't value creating and value maximizing for both.
So, what do you think the business world currently needs the most? Like, We have been hearing a lot about artificial intelligence and all those technical related stuff a lot. But except that, what are the other things that you believe the business world needs the most for its proper functioning, especially in this present context?
I think business, more than anything else, business is built on relationships. And I think real deep connections is probably more than anything else. We've got a lot of technology has helped us make a lot of superficial connections, right? Yes, we know each other's name. Yes, we are connected on LinkedIn or whatever other source or whatever other social networking thing. So we look connected, but do you really know what I'm excited about? Do you really know me? Have you spent any real time with me? And I think that's where that's where real mutually beneficial relationships come from. That's where real innovation comes from, us sitting and actually sharing ideas. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's what you're thinking. Maybe those two things combine and create this third thing that is interesting. And so this ability to spend time and the ability to create real connections. Now that doesn't mean it can't be done virtually. The good news is technology is also allowed, like it's allowing us to do this podcast from different sides of the world. We could spend a lot of time together in ways that we couldn't without the technology because we couldn't physically be together. That allows us, but we still need to invest the time. We need to invest the time and energy in creating those deeper connections and sharing what it is that we really care about and need, which is a part of that community building and that connection building.
So, when we are talking about technology, especially in the business sector, the most that we hear is AI, artificial intelligence. I mean, AI is everywhere. No matter if you go to school, colleges, conference, it's the hot cake. But what is AI? At the end, it's just a system filled with loads and loads of data, and there is no any human touch involved in it. And what I feel like is, since there is no any human touch, in long run, people won't feel much satisfied with AI. So sometime I feel like is AI actually getting overrated?
Well, it certainly is the hot topic of the day. I don't know if I want to say it's overrated, but I do believe it's more talked about than it is utilized. And so and again, that is a little bit of the nature of the world that we live in. That we love these hot topics. I guess my advice would be think about what it means for you personally. How have you engaged with AI? How will it change your life? It has helped me in some of my areas of coaching, and so I'm thinking about how it can apply directly to my life and my work and my mission. That would be my urging is get deeper than the headline of AI and start to ask the question individually. And again, in your mission, in your work, in the things that you care about, how can AI help you better do that? How can it make me a better coach? How can it, make me more efficient? I think to your earlier question of managing time, of balancing priorities, I think it is an efficiency tool. I think it is a way to get more efficient on some of the activities that we do, hopefully creating more time for family or personal things that you want to do. And so getting more efficient in your work. I think the hazard for us is to not to just continue to pile more on, but as you get more efficient with that particular piece of what you're doing, that you take the balance of that time, those found hours, and invest that in some real relationships, be those personal, be those family, or in the broader community. I think it's going to continue to be a combination. I agree with you. It is a tool like any other tool. A spreadsheet is a tool. It helps me share things and more efficiently create ways to share quantitative thoughts and ideas. But there's a human element. It is as good as what I program into it, and as good as what I share with it. And at least from my experience thus far with AI, it is the same way. You get a richer response the more you pour human interaction, human thoughts into it, and start to coalesce some. But I think its real power comes from just like the data that comes out of a greatly created spreadsheet. What do you do with it? What does then the humans do with it to take it forward? It can be a powerful tool if used wisely.
So why I'm actually talking about this thing is because I want to touch a little bit towards the digital marketing trends. So we know that companies today have completely been shifted to digital marketing trends. But what I feel is the trend of digital marketing is slowly dying because the first comers who entered the digital marketing field, they booked their profit and they enjoyed a lot. But the newcomers, they are now not able to struggle inside this digital marketing trend. So I read a survey and found that founders today are slowly moving back towards the in-person marketing. And what I feel is like this could be same with the AI because the ones who will enter the AI field at first they will book their profit, but after it stops giving much profit, then people will stop using AI. So that's my concern regarding to it.
Yeah, I think you've got to have a combination. I think both the comment can be made on both sides. A purely digital marketing strategy is going to leave you wanting for the human touch and the human connection and the reinforcement. And the same thing with an in-person marketing. I think it will leave you less efficient in how you get there. I think the real opportunity is to combine those two. How do you leverage those two together? I have fun in class all the time with the either or, right? And that creates a great debate. Is it personal marketing or is it digital marketing? And the truth is usually it's in the and. There's the power of the and, of putting those two things together. Not that one's better than the other, but the power of, and the multiplier effect, the exponential power of putting those two things together. And if I think about broadly on a marketing strategy, I mean, digital marketing can drive a lot of awareness. I think you need the personal marketing to draw the actual attention and the actual real connection. And I think you've got to find the balance between those two.
And moving towards the next topic, I want to actually discuss about the thing called diversity and inclusion because I feel that in the last couple of years, this thing is taken very seriously, especially in the developed countries, as many companies we have seen they have struggled a lot because of not following a thing called diversity and inclusion. But what I have also found is that in the developing economies also, this thing is now taken quite seriously. And I want to ask you is how have you made sure that in your own company that every is heard accurately and this thing called diversity and inclusion is followed?
Yeah, I think first you've got to recognize the value of it. And when you talk of diversity, I think of it, certainly there's, the forms of diversity that we can see in, ethnic diversity or gender diversity. But I'm actually more interested in the diversity of thought. And those two things aren't completely disconnected. And I'm also looking for the diversity of experience. This, again, back to where you started on the podcast of how do you deal with change? Guess what? Diversity is part of the answer because if I've got the right set of folks in the room, and usually it's a diverse in experience, in expertise, now I'm surrounded, right? Now I'm surrounded by folks who have a either learned experience or a lived experience on almost every topic. And as I introduce them with new information and data, we can work together to come up with a innovative solution to challenges. And so first you've got to your point of how do I leverage it? First is I recognize what my strengths are. I surround myself with people who have different perspectives, different experiences, and then I bring to them, right? Just because I'm the quote unquote leader of the organization doesn't mean that I have all the answers. I've got to actually share with them the opportunities and the challenges and ask for their ideas, their input on how to solve these. Now, ultimately, it still may be my decision, but at least I've got the benefit of their thinking and their experience. And the broader collection of people that I've got at the table, the more rich data I can take in. Again, this is the non-technology AI, where I actually can ask them the question. They can I put out data and ask them the question, put out data as to what the challenge is, let their data come back in, and I synthesize it to come up with an answer. That's real life AI with real people and connections. That's a data source. That is the same way you'd want to reach out to every database with your particular question. Those folks in your room are a database of expertise and experience that you ought to be tapping into.
Yeah, definitely. Completely agree with you on this. And what I got to learn currently from you is that every person is connected, and every data is very, very useful for us. Uh, if we are actually doing a serious business.
Without a doubt, without a doubt, and you can choose. Again, you as the ultimate decision maker or leader, you can decide which data to ignore altogether, which data to emphasize, which data to include as a part of your analysis. But that's the tough part of being a leader and a manager, is to synthesize all that information together and to make a critical decision. And that's what leadership is about, is making decisions, hopefully well informed. But I don't see how to, again, back to your diversity standpoint, and diversity has to be about, again, what you just heard, though, I like to describe it as that's an enlightened self-interest. That's not diversity because I think it's helpful to have to other groups to have them in the room, because that's not sustainable. What's sustainable is I want to have the best information. I think I've got a competitive advantage by having a broad group of folks from a broad set of experiences around the table. That's why I'm looking for diversity. That's why I'm promoting it, is because I think it makes me better. Then it's not tough to sustain. When I'm doing it because, there's a feel-good moment of I've got a rainbow of people in the room, and it shows well on the website, that's not sustainable. But when I know I'm getting better data, better answers, because I've got a team that has a very different view, a different set of experiences and expertise, that's where the real power is. That's where competitive advantage comes from.
Yeah, I have been hearing this thing quite a lot since my childhood, is that you are the actual person with whom you are connected the most, especially the five guys with whom you are mostly connected. If they are good, then definitely you will also be a good guy. And if they are bad, then you would also be a bad guy.
Yes, you will.
So, another thing that I want to talk with you is about the cost cutting thing. Though I hate this topic a lot, I do not want to talk about this thing, but it's a reality right now. Whether it be the giant ones or the newcomers, everyone is following this thing called cost cutting. And because of this thing, I feel like that the productivity is decreasing and the product quality is also decreasing because of this thing called cost cutting. And I also believe that there is a very thin line between cost cutting and compromisation. So, because of this, I feel like the newcomers, the guys who are trying to enter into the business world, they have found that this cost cutting thing is actually a cool thing. They are like, oh, okay, so we must follow cost cutting. It will help us this and that. And because in this cost cutting principle, in long run, it will definitely decrease the value of business. I would say that it will actually kill the essence of business. So, what are your views on this cost cutting thing?
I agree with you there. I mean, cost cutting has its moment in time. You need to be efficient. We're always on the look for efficiency. Businesses basically do two things largely: try to sell more and spend less. In doing that, that is the core of trying to drive a profit. What I will tell you, though, and this goes back to a word that you touched on earlier, is this idea of sustainability and scale. That great companies aren't bit. You can't cut your way to greatness. is what it's been said oftentimes. And so while it may be a short-term measure in order to increase short-term profits, you have to invest those cuts need to turn into investments, right? Those saved dollars, those profits that it generates at some point need to be invested in the business to drive innovation, to create new products and better services and solutions, because the only way you ultimately scale is that you've got a unique and valuable product and service. And to the point that you raised, at the point where cutting starts to actually decrease the value of the product or service, then you've cut too far. And so that is the balancing act. You talked about balance earlier. That is the balancing act for businesses. That is one of the tough challenges for leaders and managers is how to make sure that I'm efficient. So I do the cutting that I need to do, though that pruning, right? That hopefully is going to get us to be more productive. As a tree, you prune a tree to produce more fruit. At some point, you've got to make sure that you're actually getting it ready to produce more fruit and better fruit, and not just cutting off vital limbs of the tree is the real challenge there. And again, cutting off limbs for firewood in the short term may actually produce some results, but at some point you've got to grow the tree. You've got to do the prudent pruning and investing and nourishing that soil so that that tree grows and delivers opportunity and value for customers in the future.
And because of this cost cutting thing, in my opinion, we are actually creating a non stable workforce that will impact negatively in a long run, and it will also give a very bad fruit, as you said just before.
I think it has to. I mean, again, not because only out of enlightened self interest, right? The owner of the business, the founder of the business, only really gets to reap the benefits of the business if the business continues to grow and deliver a profit over the long term. Otherwise, it's tough to create value. And so I think in their own self interest, what you're going to find, even if someone has the mentality that I think I'm going to cut my way to greatness. The beautiful thing is the world is full of competition. There's someone else who's going to step in the void. When you start to when you've cut so much that you start to disappoint your customers, that you can no longer retain and engage your employees, somebody else is going to pick them up. Your competitor is, and you will be out of business. And so that's that's where the marketplace effect actually kicks in, to where even if you're of the mindset that, oh, I'm going to go on this craze just cutting for forever, at some point your customers, employers, suppliers, other key stakeholders are going to find somewhere else to partner, are going to find somewhere else to transact.
And yourself as a person, being involved in this teaching sector for a very long time, do you believe that this is the right time for businesses to change?
Always evolving, always changing. I don't think there's a material shift on the offing. Again, everyone spends their time thinking about how I'm going to sell more and spend less. I think there is a broader view, another stakeholder group that is having a louder voice around making sure that you also are socially responsible as you do that. It is not profit at all cost, which I think is, in recent history or further back history may not have been a part of the conversation. But it is a stakeholder. It is not the only stakeholder, but it's got to be in the equation that business needs to be socially responsible. I think that being socially responsible is also, again, I bring it back to what we just talked about a second ago. It is attracting the right customers. Your customers now care where those products and services are made, or how they're made, or that they're done in some kind of sustainable or ethical fashion. And so do your employees. And so your ability to retain your customers and to engage your employees is tied to being conscious in how you do that. And so there'll continue to be, I won't say this sea change. I won't say this immediate kind of swing of the pendulum, but I think there will be an evolution to continue to bring in the broader stakeholder group and increase long-term sustainability.
Watching the current economics and the politics of the world, what I actually feel is that it's quite difficult for businesses to sustain in this present days because of the ongoing Israel Palestine war, and the great Russia Ukraine war. And because of that, what I feel is businesses are facing a hell lot of problem these days. So that is why I was asking you is that should businesses think of changing the way they work in their daily basis?
Wars have been going on since the beginning of time. Business is still business. It is not. It is. Well, businesses survived through World War II. Businesses survived through the Vietnam War. Businesses, yes, it is a unique time. It increases. It provides a. It is a part of the context, and it needs to be analyzed, and you need to understand it. But it changes in some ways how you do business and where you do business, which countries you want to operate in. Sure, it is a factor, but it is only one factor in a broader landscape.
Thank you so much, Professor Archie. Great talking to you. Learned a lot of things from your perspective, and I hope my audience has also got to learn very new things from you. Thank you so much once again for your valuable time.
Kritik, it was fantastic talking to you. Look forward to future discussions. Good luck with your podcast.